Thanks for clicking on the video. Like, subscribe, and share if you find this useful or interesting. So, today I want to give you a preview of what we're going to get into. So far, what we've built is just a loft. Now, I did this because I wanted to show a relationship between how silk works and how traditional NURB surfacing works. Also, because as a base, it's a useful structure. If you remember the model in the intro, Sol Wager's 3D mini mouse sculpture, that's a good way to handle the bottom. But silk is about more than that. We wouldn't put this much effort if all we wanted was a loft. FreeCAD has lofts. See here, over 10 years ago, I was just showing someone, hey, this is how you can control lofts if you want. Right now, this loft is passing through the 4 white circles, and by strategically adding the red circles, I was able to explain, actually it's the reverse. It goes through the red circles, and the white circles are extra profiles to explain to FreeCAD that, hey, I'm trying to keep this portion along an arc and this portion along an arc. So this is a piece of a donut right here. This is a piece of a donut right here. And I want this sweep to only vary in this section. And so by strategically adding profiles, you can get FreeCAD to do that already. Getting this working reliably is actually even harder than silk. And also, if you just want to do one surface freely, the surface workbench full surface is absolutely amazing. Here you can see what I was able to do with it about 10 years ago. No, a little bit less than, say 8 years ago. I was just showing someone, hey, if you don't like silk, but you want to do this, you want to do this other thing, you can do this. And the trick here, by the way, to get the surface fill to work like this, is don't try to jam all the information as extra curves in the surface. Here, I'm only using the outside perimeter surface and one curve in the middle to explain the shape I want. Most of the alignment on this object comes from the fact that I already had the lower surfaces. And since I already had the lower surfaces, I can tell the surface fill, like, hey, align to these existing surfaces. And that way I only need one curve in the middle to do it everything I want. So FreeCAD has amazing tools, and use those tools if they're appropriate. The reason we're doing this crazy business with silk, one thing you should already be able to tell is that I have extreme control over individual areas of this thing, even though it follows kind of the rules of a loft. And that's not necessarily true for this thing. I was able to make it do a torus here and a torus here, but if I try to add some strange detail anywhere along these curves, the whole thing is going to start waving and just going all over the place. And that's already something that silk doesn't do. But that's not the point. The reason we have this very, very complex structure is because what we're trying to do in the end is things like this. Where is the loft here? There's no loft. There's no loft. There's no sweep. Here, I've got 3 faces merging. Here, I've got 5 faces merging. This is not the highest quality way to handle this corner here, but it's actually fairly quick. But there's a defect here. Be aware of that. And I can handle 6 surfaces meeting at a corner. Same thing. This one here is not high quality. There are lines that show up in the middle. It's still useful in some cases, but you should avoid 6 lines meeting together. It just never makes a very good design. So the 3-face corner is usable by its, why is it not zooming? Here we go. I'm going to turn off perspective. The 3-face corner is quite good in and of itself. It still has a small defect in the center, but it's pretty good. See, I actually thought the defect was here. It turns out it's actually right here. That's how hard it is to find this defect. But we can make it even better. When you have 3 faces meeting at a corner, you can eliminate the defect in this area by creating a little cheater surface on this part right here, and then you get a regular 4-sided blend over here. This is pretty powerful. And in the case of 5-sided surfaces, you can simply choose to not include one of the corners and then make a 4-sided surface again. So now this surface is back to fairly high quality, but then you need a way to fill this corner. Right now I'm using a FreeCAD Surface Workbench Fill, which does an okay job, but don't be deceived by this model. The upper face is almost completely flat. Oh, I say almost, let me show you. Actually, it is completely flat. See, this upper face right here is completely flat, and that makes it relatively easy to fill this corner. But this is a technique you can use to handle a 5-sided corner very well in the case where 2 of the edges are very well aligned to each other. Okay? But the main thing to remember is that these kinds of structures are now possible. And there is no loft that does this. There is no sweep that does this. There's no loft with rails that does this. This is what I'm after personally. And this is why I spend so much time setting up each individual area in a way that I have a lot of control over the curves in each area, but I pay a price because I have to align a lot of things and I have to be very careful in how I merge things. So when we make our next cap here, I'm gonna delete this. When we make the cap here, we're just gonna put one face exactly like this one on here. But then something is going to happen. Now, if you remember, we had the leader points. This point here was leading this point and this point. This point here was leading this point and this point. But the points on this edge were independent of the points on the opposite edge. Same as the leader point right here and these ping points were independent of the leader point right here and these ping points. When I make this face on the top, I will have to align these, which means that of the 8 leaders on the bottom, I will be down to 4 leaders, which means for my blend, I will be able to control a full loop of cut points here, a full loop of cut points here, a full loop right here, and a full loop right here. Now I'm going to say something you got to take with a massive grain of salt, is that there is no, even though when we cut one of these surfaces, this line, this curve right here, has to follow the surface very precisely, there's actually no hard rule that the size of the blend on this surface has to be the exact same thing as the size of the blend on this surface. What do I mean? Let me show you real quick. I'm going to take a snapshot. I'm going to use my red pen. I mean that this cut right here has to be done along the surface. Same as this cut here has to be done, it has to follow the surface. But where the blend starts and where the blend stops on this surface doesn't really have to be the same as what it's doing on this surface. So it won't be that hard to code something that does this. Why have I not done it yet? Just a matter of priorities. There's a lot of things to do, and I stopped writing new code right now, and I decided to make videos instead to explain what there is and how what there is works. So the rules that we're going to follow when we make this cap that force us to align the points across the bottom edges on opposite sides, that's something we have to do right now, but I have high confidence that it won't be a rule forever. But I will follow that rule because I have not written the general form of the blend yet. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to make a face right here, and each of these all 4 of these corners here we will fill with this type of object. Right? You can see we have one corner here, vertical faces and a flat cap. That's what we're going to do on this. We have more or less vertical faces here all around, and we're going to put a flat cap on there. All right. I hope you look forward to it, and I'll catch you next time.